In the hospital after an accident, my husband never visited. When I called, he said, "You're not worth the gas. Die or heal." His son added, "We don't miss you." I hung up. A month later, I left the hospital and never went home. Yesterday, my sister sent a video of him screaming outside our empty house. She took everything. I'm free now. My revenge is his emptiness. So there I was, lying in that sterile hospital bed with machines beeping around me like some twisted techno remix, thinking my husband would walk through those doors any minute. You know how it is when you're hurt. You just want the people you love to show up, right? Well, let me tell you about the biggest reality check of my life. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning. I was driving my little Honda Civic to work, jamming to some Taylor Swift, when this dude in a massive F-150 ran a red light and T-boned me right into next week. The paramedics said I was lucky to be alive. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bleeding, the whole 9 yards. They had to use the jaws of life to get me out, which sounds way cooler than it actually felt. First thing I did when I came to in the ICU was ask the nurse to call my husband. Sweet lady named Margaret with kind eyes behind her glasses told me she'd already tried reaching him multiple times. No answer. I figured he was probably at work or something, you know? He drove trucks for a living, so maybe he was out on a long haul. Day 1 turned into day 2, then 3. Still no sign of him. My sister came by with flowers from Walmart and that worried look she gets when she's trying not to say something. The nurses kept giving me these pitying glances like they'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. By day 4, I was getting seriously concerned. Like, where the heck was my husband of 8 years? I finally managed to get him on the phone, and honestly, I wish I hadn't. His voice was flat, cold as a Budweiser left out in January. No concern, no relief that I was alive, nothing. Just this weird irritation, like I was bothering him during his favorite TV show. "Hey babe," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pain meds making everything fuzzy. "I've been trying to reach you. I'm in the hospital, and I really need you here." The silence stretched longer than a highway through Kansas. Then he dropped the bomb that basically nuked my entire world. "Look, I'm not coming. Gas is like $4 a gallon right now, and honestly, you're not worth the trip. Either die or heal up, but quit bothering me about it. I swear." The heart monitor next to me started going crazy because I thought I was having another medical emergency. But no, it was just my heart breaking in real time. Before I could even process what he'd said, I heard his son, my stepson, who I'd helped raise for 3 years, grab the phone. This kid I'd driven to soccer practice, helped with homework, bought Nike cleats for when he made varsity. "Yeah, we don't miss you," he said with this casual cruelty that hit worse than the truck that put me there. "Dad's doing fine without you around nagging all the time." Click, dial tone. Just like that, my marriage was over, and I didn't even know it yet. Update. The nurses have been amazing, but I can see the pity in their eyes. Margaret brought me extra pudding cups and keeps checking on me more than necessary. I haven't told my sister what he said yet. She'd probably drive over there and key his truck. Part of me is still hoping this is all some horrible misunderstanding, but deep down, I know something has fundamentally changed. How do you come back from someone literally telling you to die? I spent the next week in a fog that had nothing to do with the pain medication. The physical therapy hurt, sure, but it was nothing compared to the emotional hurricane tearing through my chest. Every time someone's phone buzzed in the hallway, I'd think maybe it was him calling to apologize, to explain, to be the man I thought I married. My sister finally dragged the truth out of me when she found me ugly crying into a cup of hospital jello. She went through about 5 stages of anger, disbelief, rage, plotting revenge, more rage, then this scary calm that meant she was done playing games. "You're not going back there," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed like she was ready to physically fight anyone who disagreed. "I don't care if you have to live in my spare room forever. You're not going back to that." The thing is, I'd been thinking the same thing. 8 years of marriage, and when I needed him most, he couldn't even be bothered to drive 30 minutes to see if I was alive. What did that say about everything we'd built together? About the woman I thought he loved? Physical therapy became my religion. Every painful step, every exercise that made me want to quit, I channeled all that hurt into getting stronger. The hospital staff started calling me their miracle patient because I was pushing myself harder than anyone expected. But they didn't understand. I wasn't healing to go back to my old life. I was healing to build a completely new one. My sister handled the logistics while I focused on recovery. She went to the house when he wasn't there, which, according to the neighbors, was most of the time anyway. Turns out he'd been spending his evenings at the local bar, telling anyone who'd listen how peaceful things were without his nagging wife around. She packed everything that mattered to me. My grandmother's jewelry, my books, my photos from before I met him, clothes, important documents. The furniture could stay. Most of it was his anyway, and I wanted a fresh start with everything. The beautiful thing about being legally married is that I had every right to half of everything we'd built together. The house we'd bought 3 years ago, the savings account, even his precious Harley Davidson that he loved more than me, apparently. My sister took pictures of everything, documented serial numbers, made lists. She was thorough like that. Update. I've been staying at my sister's place for 2 weeks now, and honestly, I feel lighter than I have in years. No walking on eggshells, no trying to anticipate his moods, no pretending his son's attitude toward me was just teenage stuff. The lawyer my sister found says I have a solid case for the divorce settlement, especially with witnesses to his abandonment. But here's the thing that's really eating at me. Should I feel guilty for taking what's legally mine? He threw me away. Like yesterday's newspaper, but part of me still feels weird about the revenge brewing in my head. 3 weeks after leaving the hospital, I was living in my sister's guest room and meeting with the best divorce attorney in town. Turns out, abandoning your spouse during a medical emergency doesn't look great in court, especially when there are hospital records and witnesses. Who knew? The attorney, this sharp lady in a power suit who reminded me of someone who'd argue with judges for fun, laid out my options. Since we lived in a community property state, I was entitled to half of everything. The house, his truck, the savings, his retirement fund, even that stupid boat he'd bought last summer and used exactly twice. But here's where it gets interesting. He'd been so confident that I'd come crawling back, so sure that I needed him more than he needed me, that he hadn't changed any passwords or moved any money. He was living his best life, telling his buddies at the bar how he'd finally gotten rid of the old ball and chain. Meanwhile, I was systematically dismantling the life we'd built together, piece by legal piece. The divorce papers were served at his favorite bar on a Friday night. My sister's friend worked there and said he went through about 6 stages of denial, including calling me 17 times in a row. I'd changed my number by then, of course. The bartender said he kept yelling about how I couldn't do this to him, how I'd be nothing without him. Funny how someone who told you to die suddenly cares about your existence when it affects their wallet. His son called my sister's house, actually crying this time, begging to talk to me. Apparently, the reality of losing half their stuff was hitting different than his tough guy act from the hospital. Too little, too late, kiddo. The house sale was the cherry on top. Since I owned half and he couldn't afford to buy me out on his truck driver salary, it had to go on the market. In this economy, we actually made a decent profit. My half of that, plus half the savings, plus the settlement money from the accident, meant I could start over anywhere I wanted. I chose a little town about 2 hours away, far enough that I'd never accidentally run into him at Walmart, but close enough that my sister could visit on weekends. Got myself a cute little house with a garden, adopted a dog from the shelter, a golden retriever mix who follows me everywhere like he's afraid I'll disappear. The final piece of karma came 6 months later. My sister, bless her heart, still lived in the same town and heard all the gossip. Apparently, my ex had moved back in with his mom after the house sold, was driving a beat-up old Corolla because his truck got repossessed, and had developed quite the drinking problem. His son was living with his biological mother now, who'd taken one look at the situation and decided she wanted full custody. Turns out teenage boys don't love living with their drunk, bitter father in their grandmother's basement. Update. Yesterday changed everything in the most satisfying way possible. My sister sent me a video that her neighbor took, and I've watched it probably 50 times. You know what they say about karma being a dish best served cold? Well, mine came with a side of perfect timing and public humiliation. I'm not even sorry for laughing. After everything he put me through, after telling me to die alone in that hospital bed, do I owe him any sympathy now? Because honestly, watching this video felt better than any therapy session ever could. The video my sister sent was pure gold. There was my ex-husband standing in front of our old house, which now belonged to a nice young couple with twin babies, absolutely losing his mind. He was screaming at the windows like the new owners could somehow give him his old life back. She took everything. He kept yelling, pounding on the door until the neighbors started coming out to watch the show. Everything, the house, the money, even my truck. The new homeowner, this patient-looking guy in a Carhartt jacket, kept trying to explain that they'd bought the house legally, that they didn't know anything about his problems. But my ex was beyond reasoning, beyond reality, really. The best part was when he started listing everything I'd stolen from him. The savings account he'd barely contributed to, the house I'd helped pay for, the furniture I'd bought, even the garden I'd planted in the backyard, like I'd somehow dug up the tomato plants and taken them with me. His mom showed up eventually, this tiny woman in a housecoat who managed to look both embarrassed and exhausted. She apologized to everyone, within earshot, helped wrestle her grown son into her car, and drove away. The neighbors were all standing around with their phones out, because apparently this wasn't his first public breakdown. My sister said the whole thing lasted about 20 minutes, but the video she got was the highlight reel. Watching this man who'd thrown me away like garbage, who'd told me I wasn't worth $30 in gas money, reduced to screaming at strangers about how unfair life was. It was better than any revenge I could have planned. The really beautiful part was how quiet my new life had become. No drama, no walking on eggshells, no trying to manage someone else's emotions while ignoring my own. Just me, my dog, my little house with its sunny kitchen, and the garden I was planning for spring. I'd started working at the local library, which paid decent and came with amazing benefits. My coworkers were normal people who said good morning and meant it, who asked about my weekend and actually listened to the answer. It was revolutionary. Some nights I'd sit on my back porch with a cup of tea, watching my dog chase fireflies, and I'd think about that hospital room. How scared and alone I'd felt, how much that phone call had broken something inside me that I didn't even know could break. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build on. Every choice I'd made since then, every step forward, had been mine alone. The house I'd chosen, the job I'd taken, the life I was building, none of it depended on someone else's mood or approval. My sister visited last weekend and brought photo albums from when we were kids. We spent hours going through them, remembering who I used to be before I spent 8 years trying to make myself smaller to fit into someone else's life. There were pictures of me laughing, traveling, being silly with friends. I looked happy in a way I'd forgotten was possible. "You look like yourself again," she said, and I knew exactly what she meant. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. I kept my maiden name this time, kept my independence, kept my hard-won wisdom about what I would and wouldn't accept from the people in my life. The settlement money was sitting in an account with only my name on it, earning interest while I decided what dreams to chase next. My ex-husband was still living with his mother, still drinking too much, still telling anyone who'd listen that I'd destroyed his life. His son was thriving with his biological mom, making good grades and playing football, probably relieved to be away from all that toxicity. And me? I was planning a vacation to Italy with my sister, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt free enough to plan. I was thinking about going back to school, maybe getting that degree I'd put on hold when I got married. I was living a life that fit me instead of trying to fit into someone else's life. The woman in that hospital bed, broken and abandoned, and told she wasn't worth basic human decency, would barely recognize the woman I'd become. Stronger, happier, completely and utterly free. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to someone who hurt you. Sometimes it's what you do for yourself, how you rise above their smallness and build something beautiful they can never touch or take away. My ex-husband could scream at all the houses he wanted. I was home.